Can hypnosis help you sell anything? And can you become a better salesperson with hypnosis?
Well, yes, you can, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video. And the way to do this is to use the principles, the same principles that hypnotists should have learned in hypnosis training, and then just apply them to a different context.
Which is selling.
The context of selling.
Yeah.
Before we go further, I am Chris Thompson.
I'm Mike Mandel.
We run MikeMandelHypnosis.com and the Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy, which is awesome. So let's keep going.
Well, let's point out, first of all, hypnosis is not mind control. It doesn't mean that if you learn some hypnotic skills, you can sell anything to anybody, does it?
That's right. Obviously, it's not mind control. You can't sell anything to anybody. You can't just make people do what you want magically. Right. In fact, we'll often get people who will read maybe a Facebook ad that we put out or something like that, and they'll say, well, it didn't work on me because I didn't feel compelled to buy.
Yeah, they just felt compelled to write to us and tell us that.
Here's the reality, though. If hypnosis was so powerful that you could just make people buy anything, then perhaps we would sell something a little more expensive than
a bigger
hypnosis training. Like maybe we'd sell one of these Teslas that Elon Musk built. That would probably be a little bit more profitable.
Right. It would make more sense. But it doesn't do that. We can't just take control of people and force them to buy whatever we're selling, and neither can anybody.
Okay, so what are the principles that are taught in hypnosis, and how can we apply them to selling?
Right. Well, there's a hypnosis principle in that we can create rapport, which is a very obvious one. In the presence of rapport, you can do the near miraculous with another person. In the absence of rapport, nothing really works.
Right. We say that rapport is the glue that holds trance together when we're doing hypnosis with a client. And it's the same thing in any selling relationship. If you don't have rapport, nobody is going to like you and buy from you. That's an obvious starting point. What about the Mandel triangle?
Okay, well, the three sides of this equilateral hypothetical triangle are congruence, conviction, and confidence. And in the middle, you've got calibration to make sure it's all staying together. And congruence is when you are sending one consistent message with all of your body language, your words, even your internal monologue. You're telling yourself one message. We like congruence, and I'm speaking to you congruently now. We trust people who are congruent instead of, well, you'll like this product here. It's really good. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, so how do you make sure that you can be totally congruent? Well, you can start out by making sure that whatever it is that you're selling as your career, make sure that you truly believe in its value. Like you want to believe that if somebody gives you $100 for something, you're giving them like 10 times that. So say $1,000 worth of value, $1,000 worth of value is what I should be saying. So that's a great starting point. And I think if every salesperson truly believed in what they were selling, the world would be a better place and we wouldn't really need to sell very hard.
Right. And if you really believe in what you're selling, if you believe in that incredible value, I don't think it's wrong with manipulating someone. If it's going to really help their life and improve their life, and you honestly believe that for them, that you're giving them this stellar value, then go ahead and manipulate away.
Right. We're manipulating people all the time. If we invoke a positive emotion to make somebody feel, but to help someone feel good in a good way, well, that's manipulation, right? So it's ethical to manipulate people when it's for their best interest rather than yours.
Yes. And that leads us to yes sets and compliance sets.
Right.
So getting someone to say yes or agree with you internally 3 to 5 times will create this sort of bridge between the two of you, and they'll start to listen and pay attention to what you're offering them. And then you can go to compliance sets and say, well, let me show you this. And they're complying. They're looking at. When you go from yes sets to compliance sets, you remove resistance and you build a positive momentum.
And we'll make sure that we have a link to our yes sets and compliance sets video in the description in case you want more, if that's a new term for you. But it's just the idea of getting people to agree and then do what you're asking them to do.
And they can be very minor things.
Greases the wheels, excuse me, hiccups. Greases the wheels towards the action that you want them to take.
Which is compliance. Now, what about using language to bring in useful emotions and suggestions that follow?
Oh, for sure. So you can use any kind of language. For example, we had another video. We'll just make sure we link to it. It's the companion video on what we're calling what is covert hypnosis, or why would you want to learn covert hypnosis? Well, we discussed there the idea of either telling stories or just raising points, raising information that seeds an emotional
response. Yeah.
Response is a good word. Yeah.
Right. And there's a lot of language techniques that are extremely hypnotic that can be used conversationally. One of them is quotes. If you put quotes around something, it becomes almost an embedded command. We always say that you can say anything to anyone if you're quoting someone else.
I love that.
You know, he turned to me and said, "You're really enjoying this video." I mean, that kind of thing.
You'd not believe what my boss said to me last week. He looked right at me and said, "You're going to subscribe to our YouTube channel." Yeah. You know?
Wait a minute. You're using the quotes technique.
There you go.
What about double binds?
Double binds is, I call it the illusion of choice. I don't know if I came up with that on my,
Probably not.
I did come up with it, but I may not be the only person in the world who came up with it. Somebody
came up with it.
might have said that before, but the illusion of choice, because a double bind, not a double blind. The first time I heard someone say this, I thought they said double blind.
Oh yeah. Like a double blind study, right?
Bind. They're in a bind and there's two options, but both options work out the way you want it to work out. So if you want to go to dinner and you say, "Would you like to go to the new Indian place or should we stick with the Thai restaurant?" Something like that. Either way, you're going out for dinner, right?
Right. They're not even looking at the alternatives, that there may be a third, not go to dinner at all, a fourth, you know, cook at home, whatever it is. So the double bind offers only two alternatives. Either one is planned to give you exactly what you want, which leads us to presuppositions.
I love presuppositions and I love combining them with double binds. So we'll separate them here for the purposes of explanation. A presupposition is just any kind of sentence or statement where you have to assume something is true in order to make sense of what was said. So after we record this video, Mike, would you like to go to our usual restaurant? Or do you want to try a new place?
Well, you're double binding me there.
The presupposition, by the way, there is
that we will go to a restaurant.
Yeah, that we're going to go to a restaurant. And also, after we finish recording this video, I'm presupposing we're going to finish. Or I could have said, after we finish the podcast that's coming up next, implication, Mike, we're doing a podcast. We're not actually, but if we were, that would work, right? Presupposition. After you brush your teeth, do you want dessert? Not that that makes sense, because who would get dessert after? But the presupposition there being you're going to brush your teeth now,
with
right?
Clients, and when you're completely over this problem at the end of this session, what would you like to work on next week? And the presupposition is they're going to be over it. And so there's a lot here. There's many techniques that come from formal hypnosis and from NLP that can be grafted in or pushed into conversations very gently and undetectably, but they will give you the power to be conversationally covert.
Definitely. And embedded commands would be another such technique. In fact, rather than explain it, we'll just make sure there's either one of those cards that shows up right now linking to our embedded commands video, or we'll put a link in the description so you can check that out as well, because that's a great skill that you'll want to learn it. All right. So with respect to what's next, if you want to learn more about hypnosis and get really broad-based skills, I would encourage you to check out the Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy. That's our flagship online training. You can start with a free trial and it's freaking awesome. So while you're here though, click that subscribe button, then ring the bell, because that way you'll always be notified of our latest videos on YouTube. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks again and good night.